now we learn that Victoria has also been sent a bill by New South Wales. Are you expecting similar scenes?
No, I'm not, because I think the Victorian government knows full well that New South Wales has carried the nation's return travellers almost entirely on its own. I mean, let's just look at the facts. New South Wales since March has processed 125,000 return travellers through hotel quarantine, Victoria 35,000. For 4 months last year, Victoria took no return travellers. We're not taking any at the moment. So if Victoria owes New South Wales $30-odd million for processing essentially Victorians in New South Wales hotel quarantine, then Daniel Andrews should pay that bill. And whilst he's paying that bill, he should speak to Gladys Berejiklian and ask her how to manage a proper hotel quarantine system without immediate lockdowns and the virus getting back out into the community, because Gladys Berejiklian is the gold standard. New South Wales is the gold standard. That Liberal government up there has done a wonderful job. They've carried the nation, and it would be terrific if Daniel Andrews would listen to how Gladys Berejiklian is running that hotel quarantine system in Sydney, because the virus hasn't got out up there and it gets out down here all the time. Yeah,
look, there was a few choice words from the Victorian Premier, Daniel Andrews, that he said his hotel quarantine system was frankly superior, quote unquote. And then we saw an outbreak of cases that led to a 5-day snap lockdown. Do you know what the fundamental differences are between New South Wales and Victoria when it comes to hotel quarantine? Because as you point out, New South Wales has taken, I think, 5 or 6 times more travellers into hotel quarantine, but have not seen the extensive problems that we have seen out of Victoria.
Well, if we go back to March last year, the first and most obvious difference was that New South Wales used the Australian Defence Force as offered by the Prime Minister, and Victoria did not. Now, what you've seen in Victoria over the last couple of weeks in the lead up to that hotel cluster, that Holiday Inn cluster that resulted in a snap lockdown, was at least 3 quite significant infection control breaches. And, for example, the use of a nebuliser in hotel quarantine, everyone knows, every expert has said that is totally unacceptable. And then Daniel Andrews blamed the guy for using his nebuliser when he was told twice by state government officials that he could use it. But everyone knows that a nebuliser essentially weaponises the virus and it spread it all through the hotel. So whoever gave that fellow permission to use his nebuliser essentially resulted in Victoria being locked down, the entire state being locked down for 5 days. And if we go on to the next issue, which is contact tracing, New South Wales has a magnificent contact tracing system whereby only, as we saw in December, only specific local government areas were locked down. But in Victoria, the entire state gets locked down because Daniel Andrews clearly has no confidence in his contact tracing team.
Well, Tim Smith, you have 2 new cases there this morning. That is not what we wanted to hear. We were hoping to hear an easing of restrictions in Victoria today. But the good news is it seems like these 2 cases are already in quarantine. They were close contacts of cases that we already knew about. Have you got any indication what you might be expecting today? Do you think those restrictions being eased might be put on hold?
Look, I'm quietly confident restrictions will be eased. Those infections are from known contacts. They were already in isolation and had been so for quite some time, as I understand it. So I've got some level of confidence. We may not be going back to 30 people in a home, but we may be going back to 15. Obviously, the Premier's going to brief the media and the public this morning. And I'm intrigued as to what he's going to do with masks. This Premier down here is obsessed with masks, particularly outdoors. Let's see, at the moment you don't have to wear a mask outdoors, you have to wear a mask indoors, but let's see what he says about masks, mandatory masks at all times indoors. Let's see what he says about that this morning.